And then we have John Ehrlichman.
Yeah!
Tech trivia.
I didn't bring you a gift, because I was thinking about a ring. The mug didn't seem but yeah. Hi, my name's John. I've been doing television for 15 years. I've worked for Bloomberg News, ABC News, HLN, a variety of TV outlets, and like this gentleman here, when Periscope came around, I certainly thought about what it means for my industry, what I do for a living. Right before Periscope and Meerkat launched, I was working with Maker Studios, which is a Disney-owned multi-channel network, on strategy with ABC News. And they've been really busy thinking about how they can further leverage their brand in the world of YouTube, and then all of a sudden this live streaming world comes together. And started using it for myself. Really love the engagement, very different than anything I've ever been able to do in traditional television. We launched a talent network tied to Periscope, which is called Livestream. And then we noticed a lot of linear viewing on Periscope, people collaborating, doing almost like blocks of programming, setting the stage for what we now have and launched last month, which is called Parachute TV. And Courtney, thank you for contributing to Parachute TV.
Yeah, Court's Corner, Mondays nights, 7:30. Shameless
She
plug.
does a wonderful job. Plug away. It's a single Periscope account which we program like a television channel. It's programmed 7 days a week. We launched last month. We do more than 20 hours of programming a week with more than 40 contributors at this point. And I'll get into it over the course of the session, but we do a range of programming, but we have recently been launching into a lot of live event coverage, and yeah, I'll talk about that a little bit more as we go on.
Don't say it yet.
Okay.
Safe. Okay, and then Julie Wilson of Huffington Post.
Hi everyone, I'm really excited to be here. So yes, I'm an editor at the Huffington Post. I've been at HuffPost for 4 years. I'm the senior fashion editor, so my day-to-day is usually writing about fashion and beauty and that sort of thing. But Ariana was brave enough to allow me to start producing, launch and produce HuffPost's Periscope channel. So I've been having a lot of fun with that. Mostly just we do a scoop on the scope almost every day at the offices, at the New York City offices, where I just get on and go around the newsroom, talk to different editors, talk about what they're working on. People can interact, ask questions. It's really great engagement because the viewers will tell me who they want to talk to, what they want to talk about, or so not only is it I think awesome for viewers to see what the Huffington Post newsroom's like and what we're doing there, but it also gives us really great insight on the type of stuff that makes them tick and like what they want to hear from us as editors. We also do some other programming, but for the most part, we haven't really gotten super into it. So that's why I'm excited to be here and not only hear from these guys, but also from you guys about what you want to see from companies and organizations like the Huffington Post. From our Periscope accounts. We also do, our beauty editor does like a beauty bag where she opens, she opens all of the products that are sent to us from different companies, so it's fun. I also just love going around the site, like searching Periscope and looking at different people's channels and programming. It's really cool to do that under the Huffington Post name and not mine, because you get a lot more attention. They're like, wait, the Huffington Post is watching? And I'm like, yeah. And I have like, my emojis are always brown skin, because I'm brown skin, and they're like, wait, like, is that the Huffington Post? So I'm like, yes, a little black girl. So it's kind of cool to like let people know that I'm also behind it. But anyway, it's fun, and I'm excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
Mauricio Segovia, in from Moscow?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, tell us what you do.
Nearby, Well, I'm a news anchor for RT International. Well, RT Spanish, actually. RT is Russia's international TV network, and we broadcast in English, Spanish, French, Arabic, and Russian. And I work for the Spanish channel, and occasionally for the English one as well. So basically, I was the first member of the staff in the company that started scoping. And I was hooked from the very first second I hit the recording button. And not only because, most of the time I'm in the studio, although I'm as well a international correspondent, so I take my followers, my community with me on all my trips, and I do travel all over the globe, so they really appreciate it. And actually today I got a tweet of someone saying, thank you for letting me see the world through your eyes, and that's very beautiful. And for me as an anchor, the most important thing is that thanks to Periscope, you get to see the people that are watching for once, and you get to know them very well. And for the company, it's actually very interesting as well, because they get to know what kind of contents they want. And in news, that is interesting as well, because even in the rundown, you can actually take into account what people are interested in. And I think that's going to change a lot the scenario for journalism. That's why we're here today, and we're going to be talking about, I'm sure. So, and then what I do as well, and I do Moscow tours every Thursday, and the way I do it is on Wednesdays, I tweet 4 options to my followers, and they get to choose one of the 4 places, one of the 4 locations. And on Thursdays, we just go to that location, and I give them like tips on what to do there. Like I tell them the history about this place, but always like, it's not serious or anything like that. It's Periscope, So and they really appreciate that. And we do that not only in Moscow, but like for instance, like a month ago I was in Colombia, so we were doing that. And I mostly do hardcore journalism, meaning like I go to conflicts and stuff like that. So it gets a little bit tricky when you go to places like that, because the access of to good connectivity is not that great. But we try, and people want to see the behind the scenes, how the news making process. So that's interesting.
I was going to get into that a little bit about how you're using Periscope. Are you using it to build your fan base, your followers? Are you using it to just report stories? Is it a mix of everything? You touched on a little bit of that, but you can answer, and then maybe Julie.
Okay. Yeah, so I guys told you already like some of the things that I usually do on Periscope. What I also do, when we are, people, I realized at the very beginning when I first started, I realized that, I was doing hard news, so I was commenting on, doing analysis of certain news that were happening during the day. I would break down the rundown that we had for that day in the newscast, and the interaction was great. People were like, all right, tell us more. And I do several newscasts during the day, because it's RT's at 24/7 news channel. So every single day we do one Periscope edition, meaning that people can actually watch TV and watch Periscope as well. And when we have packages running, for instance, on air, I do talk to them, and I get an in-depth insight of that piece of news, for instance. But then eventually I realized that people actually get on Periscope not just to hear about hard news, but to get to know you. And that's when I started thinking, well, actually, Periscope is this way to actually click with your audience and get to know them, and they get to know you at a personal level, as much as you want to share. And that's the most amazing adventure, I embarked on since I started scoping, because you see people who follow you, they are very, they follow you every day, and once you click their recording button, they are there, and you get to know them every single day. They share I don't know, whatever they're doing, and even though I might be scoping from a studio, in a way, they feel like they are within my life, and step by step, I let them get into my life as well. And I don't only do scopes from the studio anymore. I do scope, I don't know, from my place, and once a week I let them choose my tie that I'm gonna go with on air, and they love that as well, and they drive me crazy because they never agree. So, but that's actually a lot of fun, even for hardcore news. Everything. Well, not everything has to be serious in news as well.
Julie, do you find that people are coming back for you, or is it for the content that you guys are putting out? or mix?
I'd like to think that I'm entertaining. So I think that people do come back for like the Scoop on the Scopes in particular, since I kind of run those, and HuffPost Beauty's Beauty Bag. And those, like I said, are kind of like the main programming right now. We're going to get into a lot more programming in the next few weeks and months. But I think that our Periscopes are really a great reflection of the Huffington Post as a site. I mean, we are the biggest like news site in the world, I think, right now. But also,
I don't know.
I mean, competition, or maybe the largest expanding, maybe in the country. But we actually have more international readers than we do in the United States, which is really funny. But we're like expanding. I mean, the HuffPost editions, we keep launching them. Like I feel like every week. In different countries, and we're doing really well. Let's just put it that way. So I think that so I feel like it's a good reflection of that, but also the fact that you go to Huffington Post and you see hard news, but you also see kind of the lowbrow and the highbrow. So I feel like that's what we're trying to reflect in our Periscope as well. We Periscope the Hillary Clinton's rally, presidential candidacy rally. We'll Periscope different, celebrities that come into HuffPost Live. So, we want to be able to show that, yes, we are a real hard-hitting news organization, but also we like to have fun. I think it was like International Donut Day or National Donut Day, and we went to like Dunkin' Donuts, and we took our Periscope viewers along with us. So
You're showing the personality of your company.
I feel like we need to be. It's on me to make sure that our Periscope account reflects Huffington Post as an organization and what we've become. So
That gets tricky. I think some of you have probably heard a few months ago, it was right after Periscope started, a reporter in Tucson was fired from her job for using Periscope. And I think it was so early on that her station didn't really have any policies. And you were telling me that you, at the BBC, they don't really have any policies yet, but it's been successful. Periscope has been successful.
Yes, I mean one of the best examples perhaps was by Nick Garnett, who you should follow. He's doing some fantastic stuff all about tech and about Mojo, so mobile journalism, so journalism using iPhones and so on. So Nick Garnett, and he was one of the first reporters in Nepal after the earthquake, and he was able to send some of the first pictures out of Nepal there, and so much so that Periscope actually featured some of those pictures in the promotional video that Periscope put together about a couple of months ago. So, but there's that. There's also the behind the scenes, at football matches and things like that. But I think perhaps one of the key things is that this is perhaps additional to what broadcasters are doing. So if you've got 5 million people perhaps watching the BBC News channel, for example, then what's the priority? Surely it's obvious to be going for that rather than maybe 50 or 500 people on Periscope. But so that's probably going to be the second thing you'll do, or you're waiting to do your live cross onto the national network news or something like that. So it's additional. It mustn't take over. There's got to be that balancing act.
Do we need to be teaching reporters how to use it properly, or set up policies, or using one of your handbooks?
Oh yes, I think everyone should be buying the handbook.
Or do we trust reporters and anchors because they're usually good on the fly on Periscope?
Yes, but I think there are. And I'm sure all you guys would agree that obviously one of the beauties of Periscope is that it can be done on the fly. It is rough, it is raw, it is ever ready. It's always in your pocket. But perhaps if you're representing a national news channel or a big brand, you've got to do it as kind of professionally as you possibly can, certainly. So training techniques. In fact, I've put together a tip list. If you find yourself in a situation where you're an accidental journalist and you come across a fire or a crash or something like that, I've put together a 17 bullet point tick list of what you could be thinking of to stand a better chance of your Periscope making it onto the national news. So I'll give you the link a little bit later on.
Awesome. Bricio, do you have any comments on whether we should be teaching reporters how to use Periscope, or whether there needs to be some guidelines or policies?
Well, I think Periscope is so new, right, that we are all trying to figure out how it works, what kind of different uses we can actually, what can we do with it, right? And this is actually this summit, this Periscope summit is actually a reflection of that, right? This is why we're having this panel, because we're trying to figure out what to do with it, even in this field, in journalism. And I think that's one of the beauties of Periscope, right? That it gives us the freedom of do whatever we like. And this is actually what we're doing right now. And this is why not only people like on-air talent, are using Periscope. Also people who are not on TV, people who are in their living rooms, like they think, all right, I can have my own show. And I think that's actually one of the beauties of this scope. It is true, though, that as a journalist, you're training to do your job. It's a profession, and we are professionals. And when we're talking about news, we have a social responsibility as well in the way we report. We need to be unbiased, and all those things that we are taught when we go to college, and that we face in reality later on, right? So, do they need to be certain rules? I wouldn't say rules, but certain ways of how to use an ABC or how to use Periscope. In journalism, yes, I do think so, just because we do have a social responsibility as journalists. And I do think that everyone or anyone can live broadcast, but not everyone can be a journalist. So I think that media and media outlets actually need to figure out how to use properly Periscope or scopes that they get from random users, right? Because the contents might be really good, but as a media outlet, you have a responsibility as well to show what's news and to show actually, whatever needs to be shown in a very balanced way and a journalistic way.
I'll just give you a couple examples. Like on Parachute TV, which, by the way, shout out to my co-creators, Seth Cohen and Caroline Leslie as well. We do that balance. We saw an opportunity to work first with some of and a lot of you are in the room too, and thank you to you, some of the influencers on Periscope who know how to use Periscope and are great storytellers, because that's half the battle in this business, is taking that news and providing the context around it. And a lot of you really do a great job with that. So we started with that foundation, but we are going to that next level. We covered the Republican debate last week. I was there at the Reagan Library. We were credentialed as Parachute TV.
The first Periscope network one that got credentials to cover it, right? That's a big
my
one.
colleagues from ABC, who I
a big
worked for at
difference.
ABC. Yeah, it was good. And so we were able to provide some behind-the-scenes access to many of the Republican lawmakers who were there, candidates like Ben Carson. But to your point about balance, we wanted to make sure we heard from both parties. So we had Congressman Ted Lieu's, the congressman in my jurisdiction in California, who was in DC watching, who then was on our channel, and he shared his thoughts as a Democratic response and did Q&A. And there was no moderator in between, because I think you have all learned that the power of Periscope, which you heard on the last panel too, is when you are connecting directly with that audience. We did the same thing when we covered the Apple event a couple of weeks ago. We were live there showing you behind the scenes, but we also had an Apple developer who was able to talk, not at the event, directly with the audience afterwards, so that people can feel satisfied with that coverage. And we're also working with some traditional media players. Tomorrow we're going to work with the Weather Channel, and they're always looking for ways, like all of your organizations, to better interact and engage, and they're going to use Parachute TV as a place where they can engage on a few stories, the kinds of things that audience would be interested in hearing, almost as part of their editorial daily process. And so that's a great thing. And so I think there's a balance. There's room for people who are native to Periscope, there's room for traditional media players. In our case, we try to bring both of those together.
Am I right when I say that you guys saw an opportunity super early to jump in and start the network not to necessarily, well, maybe to like beat the big networks and have a chance to compete with them?
I just wasn't impressed personally with what I was seeing from traditional media. There are so many innovative people inside these companies, and the best I was seeing, to your earlier point, was live telecasts or what have you, and sort of a phone over here and not even looking at the screen. And the power for me is, man, 15 years I've been doing this, I've never been able to talk to the audience. That's the beauty of what this is. So it kind of started there for me personally, and so we've really tried to make everything we do very interactive. I mean, obviously the formats that you guys are doing too are align that same way. I'm talking about the first couple of weeks. That was where I certainly thought there's an opportunity here. And that's just the way it is. Traditional media outlets, they have a priority list, and it's not that they're not forward thinking, they're just big boats and it's hard to turn them.
And I think another area which I haven't heard anyone talk about in any great depth is the, okay, we've done the TV, but also radio as well. You know, radio stations now have a TV station as well, which is a fantastic opportunity to obviously show behind the scenes, but if you're doing a live, what we would call an outside broadcast or a remote, to actually see the person in their situation, in their office, at the scene. If you're at the scene of a fire, yes, you can describe it for the radio, but to be able to show people that, you know, it's a fantastic, it has doubled your potential audience. You've now got 2 platforms, put in Twitter as well for obvious reasons. You've got 3 platforms that you are broadcasting on, which is a tremendous opportunity for radio people.
So are we seeing, and any of you guys can answer this, are we seeing growth on other platforms because of Periscope? Are we seeing either Twitter followers going up because they saw you on Periscope and now they're a fan and now they're coming back to watch your show and they're commenting on your Twitter and your Instagrams? Like, have we seen direct translation?
I mean, I personally think Twitter's kind of been glue to all this so far. It's been the best place for people to interact. I've seen it with a lot of people who I've noticed, just great Periscope creators. I mean, forget news, just people who actually were never on Twitter before and then had a reason to be there to connect with the Periscope. So they work very well together, and it is a great way. I mean, to your example earlier about where are we going on Thursday, you know, you're using Twitter to do that. So definitely there's, you know, whether it increases, fall, they all come together well.
We know that news tends to take video from viewers or from people on the street. Do you think that they'll be looking towards Periscopers more for that kind of video, for man on the street video, for citizen journalists? Do you think there'll be more citizen journalists? Because if so, there are a lot of issues that come up with that, and you mentioned some like legal and ethical issues that come up with using Periscope versus...
Absolutely. So the BBC has the best user-generated content (UGC) hub out of any newsroom in the world. So they've got a team of specialists there who are trying to find the pictures, the video, the tweets, the eyewitness accounts, and so on. But also, crucially, checking them, verifying them, backward sourcing the pictures, phoning the people up and actually asking them some questions, checking the cross-referencing the pictures with things like the weather reports or the shadows, so was it actually taken at the time of day that they say it was, cross-referencing with other pictures from the scene, does it all add up, Google Maps and Google Images, all sorts of things. So we are a trusted source. We've got to get it right. As the BBC might say, you know, there's no point being first and wrong. You've got to be second and right if necessary. So that is really, really important. But when it comes to something like Periscope, yeah, there are circumstances in the past where we have used Periscope, or the BBC has used Periscope, or Meerkat, or other live streaming videos coming in. But as I say, it's crucial to cross-reference those as early as possible to make sure that well, first of all, it is what it says it is, but also who's it come from as well. I mean, at what point you know, there's a grey area between what you guys are perhaps sending into a news organisation, or maybe a political organisation or a charitable organisation, and then it starts to blur. And is this a, inverted commas, recognised political organisation, or is it a banned political organisation? So at what point are you giving the oxygen and publicity versus the right to reply and the right to actually for democratisation?
I mean, I think that's where Periscope has been helpful when they are featuring, and they do feature a lot of news happening around the world. Oftentimes they'll work with a news source that isn't rooted in video. Obviously now, basically every media organization has some video chops, but in a lot of cases, whether it's Time Magazine or other outlets that happen to be somewhere covering what's happening with refugees tied to Syria, I mean, that's where I think the value of the media brand certainly is a good differentiator, and certainly has kind of been an example for people to follow. And Periscope's been very good at highlighting that kind of content, just to sort of, I think, get everybody on the same page too.
Yeah, and I totally think that Periscope is actually filling this gap that we had. And I'll give you an example. Like last year, I was covering, well, I spent most of the year in Ukraine covering the conflict there. And I started like sharing contents, video, photos all over Instagram. And you know, like several video agencies actually contacted me to ask, hey, can we use this video? We'll give you credit for that. And just imagine if Periscope had been available back in that day, you know. So I think Periscope is actually filling that gap. Also, you know, I got featured. I was one of the Instagram feature users while I was in Ukraine. You know, so there is an interest as well in all that, and you can do that with Periscope now. But you know, it's very important, you know, to have like a background check. Who is that coming from? Because like, especially like, I don't know, like for me, I've been working in conflicts and zones and stuff like that. There is so much propaganda always coming from all sides, you know, and it's just so easy to send a footage or just say, now we're talking about footage, but just let alone like press releases and stuff like that, you know, saying whatever you want to say, and it's like, do I need to believe you? Who are you? You know, so that is essential. That is basic for any news outlet out there.
I will say, as we've heard many times today, the Periscope community is pretty good at keeping you honest. So they're good at policing it too. If someone's going to be somewhere interested and claiming it's something, they're pretty good at calling you on what they're seeing at that time, keeping you in check too. So.
Yeah, but we've seen it on YouTube as well before, you know, when we see this video that all of a sudden is on YouTube.
Absolutely.
No one really knows where it comes from, but hey, we know where that is, and you know, and we know what happened there. Okay, right. Do we? You know, so that's actually what we need to question when we get a video from a Periscope user as a news entity.
Peter brought up a good point. You had mentioned the dichotomy between hearts versus like seeing tragedy on Periscope and then having the hearts fly up on the screen.
I think
it's very odd.
There's a huge ethical implication, isn't there? There was a lot of talk. I think it's on Medium.com. And also, guys, if you're really interested in this, I should reference the Columbian Journalism School and their global study of user-generated content in TV and online news output, which is absolutely superb. So if you're interested in that, I'll give you the that name again a little bit later on. But the ethical implications, for example, after the recent bombings in Bangkok, which Alex Pettit referenced a little bit earlier on, where people were encouraging the periscoper to go over to a place, show me that on the floor, get up closer, what is that? And then the realization from the broadcaster and also the viewers that actually this was a body part. And we're showing a body part of someone that was recently blown to pieces, quite obviously, and there are hearts going up the side of the screen. And people making comments like, that's awesome, this is real life, this is as real as it gets, this is true. And other people saying things like, I'm never going to be able to unsee this. Right. So what are the ethical implications? Yes, it is true, but at what point do we all have a collective responsibility? And certainly if this was being shown, well, it wouldn't be shown live to air on a service like the BBC.
And how do you censor it?
How do you censor it? At what point do we as Periscopers draw back from something and you say, you know what, I'm actually not going to show this, I'm uncomfortable with this, and also for the family hearing and seeing this for the very first time, we surely need to have some kind of dignity. I think we just got to bear that in mind, that if people are chasing a story, maybe they're chasing a story for hearts and followers, and maybe hard cash, as we mentioned a bit earlier on, without actually thinking through the implications ethically and morally.
So I think that's an important point. I mean, there's been a lot of discussion today about what an individual scoper will do as part of their own preparation before they start a broadcast. This is no different. Certainly the preparation that goes into any story you're covering as a journalist is thorough. And so I think, and we try to do that, especially when we're covering live events too, is have a roadmap, the same way that I've always had a roadmap in live TV, so you can avoid any pitfalls from that perspective. The only thing I'll say about hearts flowing in the comments on the screen, I think Periscope is trying to give us a look at the world in real time, and if the alternative is censorship of the individual, I don't know if that's a good thing either. And anything that lives online has comments that are sometimes crude around the content itself. It's just this is different because it's right there in the video as it's happening. But go look at any YouTube video or any story that's posted on any of your sites and look at the comments section and you'll see something offensive. It's inevitably there. So I think the question is, if we sort of take all that out of it, take the hearts out of it and the random comment from someone who's maybe shouldn't be in your broadcast and maybe should be blocked immediately, I think this is just the evolution of video online.
I agree with you. I actually don't believe in censorship when it comes down to Periscope at all. And I think that, we need, as users, we need to use our criteria and be like, all right, who am I following, right? Who am I watching? Once you know that, then you can trust that person or not. It's like the real, it's like the internet actually, right? There is porn, there is some other stuff that some people might not want to see, but it's there. But you have your own criteria and you actually say, okay, I'm gonna go on this website, or I'm just gonna block it, or I'm not gonna go, right? Or I'm gonna apply a filter so my family can see that. I don't know, whatever. So I guess that applies as well to Periscope. And the game is different when you are in a news organization. In that case, there's need to be a filter. But you trust your employees, right? You trust your journalists or your reporters. And that's why it's important maybe to have a code of conduct and be like, all right, guys, if you're facing this situation, don't go any farther, because as a news entity, we cannot show that. Once you know that, then you're fine, right? You have the basic lines of what you can do and you cannot do within that organization, because, let's be honest, all news organizations have certain, lines to follow when it comes down to reporting. But again, I think it's more, it's the user actually who needs to be able to choose what they want to see or block.
Okay. I think, how are we doing on time?
Maybe one more minute. Let's do one more minute.
Okay. Anybody have any closing comments? Julie, do you guys have issues with your, well, I know we've been talking a lot about hard news, but have you guys had any issues for Huffington Post about either some of your viewers or any problems that you guys have run into, any issues?
Not really. I've been just listening to you guys talk about this issue because we haven't really gotten into that, really. We haven't had to use any kind of these hard news videos from Periscope or, writing to them or using them within our posts. Our stuff is super light right now. Again, I'm just trying to use the platform at this point just to give people an inside look at what we do as editors on a daily basis, what the newsroom looks like, Ariana's office, our nap rooms, going to Fashion Week shows, doing test kitchen stuff. So it's really been light. I feel like there is a great opportunity for us to get into this hard stuff. I think hard news stuff, when that happens, I'm definitely gonna have your guys' voices echoing in my ear. But yeah, we're just having fun with it right now, really trying to explore and talk to the viewers and see what they really want from HuffPost.
And push people towards the website.
Yeah, totally. I mean, we obviously want people to read the work that we're doing, and all of us editors write like 3 to 5 stories a day. So we're churning out content. So we this is just another vehicle, like you said, to tell people our personalities, who's behind the stories, and then hopefully that inspires them to go read them.
Any last comments?
Yeah, I just want to mention something very quick. Because like you guys, you usually work with an English market, but in my case, I'm a bilingual Periscoper, and I keep separate accounts actually for my Spanish scopes and my English scopes, because I don't want to how sometimes you get I don't know, people don't want to see things they don't want to see, and if they don't understand, they get confused. So I just decided to go for 2 separate accounts. I'm just exploring that option and see how that goes. But I mostly do scopes in Spanish at bsegovia_RT, if you guys are interested, because it's not the handle that you guys see here. That's the English one, the one you got. And it's very interesting to see how that market is so different from the American or the British or the English-speaking market, community. And it's growing in a more slow pace, I would say, but it's there. And it's just very interesting to see, in my case, it's a very awkward situation sometimes, because I'm mostly scoping from Moscow, Russia, in Spanish to an international audience. So people get really confused, and I don't really know, maybe someone can tell us, but I don't really know how Periscope actually deals with all that. I think it's maybe geographically, and the scopers, the audience actually see the users that are closer to them, I'm guessing, because I get a lot of Russians.
He deserves the $25,000 ring.
Give it to me. I'll take it.
Girl flying fine jewelry. Okay.
So I get a lot of Russians in my scopes, and poor guys, they hear a guy speaking Spanish in a news studio based in Moscow, and they're like, what is that? Then I get people from all over Latin America and Spain, which is really rewarding. Also from the US, the Hispanic community, and that is just freaking awesome, because my scopes go a little bit crazy, because I end up speaking Russian, English, Spanish, the other day I had French as well. So my community started calling me the multitasker, because not only I'm doing the news, but I'm speaking different languages, but I'm also paying attention to them, and that's really cool, because they joke around, and it's just really, really cute. My point is that we need to pay attention as well to how other markets are growing in Periscope. Obviously, the U.S. market is the largest one. It's one of the largest ones. The English-speaking market is definitely the largest one. We gotta pay close attention as well to the Spanish one, because as we all know, it's a pretty huge community out there. So, yeah.
Thank you guys so much. Thank you for listening. Thank you guys. Peter Stewart, John Ehrlichman, Julie Wilson, Mauricio Segovia. Thank you guys so much. Thank you guys.
If you want those tips I mentioned, up your Periscope is the. I've just tweeted the link to everything that I mentioned a bit earlier on. Up